see a growing direction in these past 3 months. The radical right in Europe really are on a rise. Many radical wing representatives are sent to the European Union that they hate their agendas against immigrants, against foreigners, neo-Nazis. We see that even Marie Le Pen, she took an historical win, and she has 24 representatives going to the European Union, and this is unprecedented. And in Norway, there is a right-wing party that has achieved, they got more than 16% of the votes, and in Finland, 19%, the True Finns, and the Netherlands, 10%, Austria, Hungary. We see that it goes and grows, and the radical right is conquering Europe. And the commentators say that there are 3 reasons for this. One, serious unemployment, many youth and young people on the streets, nothing to do. The economical crisis, which is an ongoing crisis through the whole European continent, and of course, the disappointment from the old politics. Something is not working. This is a very interesting phenomenon, but the first question that I'd like to ask you is, when we look at a situation, which is a hard situation of distress, security problems, economical problem, we see that there is a phenomena of the growing stronger of the radical right. So let's try and understand how does this kind of situation of distress that includes many factors causes people to decide or to think that choosing the radical right is the right solution. I think that the radical right is good in the eyes of the Europeans, because all in all, what are they saying? They're saying, we have to take care of ourselves. We don't want the immigrants. I have to cut all, take from my children, actually, for the elderly, all the money that they get from the government is going in a different direction. And why? If we had some work here, we would accept them. They would work and go back. But the thing is that they come here and they don't work. We can see it all over Europe. In the middle of the day, day by day, on the streets, who are on the streets? The immigrants. The Europeans themselves, they're working. If they have work. So then why have immigrants? We have to pay them money. And what for? And the way they behave, what's the use? They're all against our culture, against our education. They don't want to learn from us how to be like us. They don't want to mix in our society, in our environment. They don't want to be absorbed in any way in the European society. So why then? What for? Why does Europe need them? And we see that it's really felt this way all over Europe. So why should Europe accept these people? I'd ask about it, I think, 30 years ago or even more, 40 years ago maybe, when England started accepting immigrants, and how happy they were that a few immigrants came to England. I don't remember exactly, from India, maybe from Africa too. There was a lot of noise back then. I also didn't really understand it. I wasn't even 30 back then. What are they happy about? They're accepting people that are completely non-European. It's so, and what do they do with them? Just as a symbol. But then I saw that the door opened, and because of the political struggle in England, suppose, that these don't want and those do want, right and left. And then the door opened because the politicians wanted to benefit something for themselves. upon this whole struggle over immigrants and between the parties. But eventually, they had to open the door, because then the opposition, their opposition would have blamed them by nationalism and different, as if bad things. And then they kept silent. In the meantime, millions and millions came, filled London and England all together. And now it's in Scotland, everywhere. We have millions of immigrants. Of course, they don't want to work, and in France, it's all together. It's, I don't know, 15% or how many? They're not working, they have a ghetto of their own. They don't let anyone go in there. The police is also afraid of going in there. They have everything of their own. They build their mosques, their holidays, their everything. It's different than, suppose, in the U.S., because the U.S., it was built as this kind of a country that actually all the different nations came and united there. Nonetheless, around the native, around the English speakers, but it was nonetheless. However, here we're coming to such an ancient culture like the Europeans. And they come there and they don't take into consideration anything or anyone. And this right that is on the rise now, they want to protect their homeland, their country. They want to protect their children, their small children, for them to have what to give to their children and not to spend it on immigrants. So their complaints are correct. They're just, and it will go and grow. I don't see how can you blame them for what. What are they wrong about? That they say that we don't want to accept them, we don't want to pay for them. Why should we? Where is it written that we should? Because the politicians decide. Because as a result they have some political benefit, so this is what happens. Why should we fill Norway, Sweden, these countries that they lived in this total freeze for thousands of years? Why open their doors? We see now that the whole of Europe, and this is only the beginning, you can't really stop it. The question I'm asking, we see a phenomena that repeats itself, because more or less the same reasons were the reasons that led to the Second World War. There was a very similar situation in the world. There was a lot of unemployment, economical distress, and it was a very good base for Nazis to grow. And if everyone had a job, and those immigrants that came would add their strength to it, and all in all, the product of the country in each and every place would grow, and it would develop the country, then there would have been no place for the right, radical right, to shout about it. But because there's no work, and the budget is constantly being decreased. Decreased from whom? From the kids of the French, in order to actually give to the immigrants, so they don't agree. So there's unemployment. There are different states here that countries can't connect between them correctly. What is the European Union? They thought that as a result they'll be economically well off. They didn't think they had to connect nations according to a mutual culture, education, for something to have to have something which is truly united. Was united, that everyone has a united realm, which is an ideological basis, cultural basis, which is mutual, and there's no mutuality here. What? Banks, industry, barely. Where we see immediate benefit. And of course, it's on the way for failure, and there will be more and more reasons for the right to rise. This is a seemingly interesting question because Europe it saw enough wars. Today, Europe is incapable of fighting. We're living in different times. When I, suppose in Germany, talk to the heads of, suppose mayors, politicians, they say, we're tired. From what they feel. How many go out to take to the streets, shouting, protesting? Actually, we can't resist it. When I ask them, why don't you take people to the streets against all those immigrants that make these riots? What's the problem? They say, our people, they don't go, they don't take to the streets, that's it. The period that we fought is over. Today, we're incapable of fighting. Meaning what we see there, neo-Nazis and so on, it's a lot of shouting, and also it's shouting and which nothing stands behind. It's not like Hitler, who really accumulated his force, and they went day and night with the torches. And wait, on the one hand, if they don't take it to the streets and don't do anything, okay, this I understand. But on the other hand, they do vote for the radical right. Politically, yeah, but no more than that. Meaning, really, for war, for inner war inside Europe, to fight these with those and those with these, they don't want and they can't. There can't be a war now inside Europe between the European countries. They don't have the strength to fight, the urge. They grew old. They simply grew old. And it's really felt that they don't want, they don't agree, that their youth take to the streets and yell. But it's a kind of a world that is growing old. Like during, I don't have the strength, and whatever happens, happens. I agree, more or less. And we really see an interesting phenomena that that a lot of the radical right, they're against the European Union, because they see that all of the management of Europe is a failure. That eventually those who are successful, which are the UK, France somewhat, and so on, and they have to pay for countries that aren't that successful. And it doesn't matter why they're successful or not. And also when we see how this European Union, the kind of politics that they take, they're not satisfied. They're not. The smaller countries aren't satisfied either. Suppose when I was in the Baltic countries not long ago, they're all unsatisfied. They said we had a milk industry, excellent milk industry. They told us, you want to be in the European Union? You shut everything down. We had a nuclear power plant, even though that it's nuclear and the Russians built it, but they say, shut it down. We now are reliant on the electricity that we have to receive and pay for, and we have to buy dairy products from them, meaning we remained even without the small industry that we had. And what's happening today? We fell. It's only written down that we're in Europe and we have the same euro currency. But the euro, till I earn it, it's really, it's very hard compared to what they make in England or Germany. So what's the use? So all of our workers that worked here, with their families, with everything, they left their families and went to Europe to work. This is called unity, union, meaning a few rich countries in Europe. They actually made for themselves. It's like I was in Portugal. It is a nation, a country, that they're fishermen. It's forbidden for them to fish. That's it. meaning the European market divided Europe into areas. These are engaged in this, those are engaged in those, and cut from each and every country something which historically was a part of that nation, and according to the nature of the people, education, culture, and so on, it was so suitable for that nation to be engaged in it. And really, I saw people that are miserable. It's one big failure with the whole management of things, and therefore we see, besides hatred for foreigners, we also see hatred between nations, between countries, and therefore each country have neo-Nazis of their own, and they don't want a unity, they don't want to unite. And really there's great opposition to the European Union because there's nothing common about it. There has to be some kind of a mutual realm that connects between us, but they didn't precede mutual education and did not introduce it into this whole continent that we, the Europeans, look what we went through. It's good for us to connect. Maybe we'll do it this way, that way. Maybe we'll have a referendum and we'll see how can we do it in a better way. Also, what does it mean? Connection. Let's have different public committees, not like it happens in Belgium, something there, but really let's on general television, have an educational system. This will be a must to study in school, and any European person will have to pass exams regarding this in accordance with Europe and so on. Meaning, it has to be a kind of a process that the Europeans go through. Sure, and it didn't happen.